Professor, very good morning. First question to you, Professor. Are South Africans expecting way too much from these commissions, even the Zondo Commission itself, because these are just fact-finding commissions, aren't they? They're not. It's not the court of law.
Yeah, you're correct. I mean, there have been 28 major commissions and investigations over the last 2 years. Unlike any other country in the world, we kind of wall-to-wall covered with information about all the wrongdoings, but with no significant arrests. Contrast that to the Mueller investigation in the US. People got arrested before the report was published.
What's the problem there? Is it a legislation problem?
It's got quite a lot to do with the fact that the institutions like the NPA were virtually destroyed. And they have had to be rebuilt, refunded, restaffed, and it's that's the problem. The people who are supposed to put the bad guys in jail were removed.
Okay, let's talk about the Zondo Commission and focus on the former President Jacob Zuma's testimony there. He's claiming amnesia on a lot of issues. If that carries on, what can the Commission do about that?
The Commission is now in a very difficult position. The Commission was set up by by government in order to find the truth. And what former President Zuma has done is define the Commission as the culmination of a grand conspiracy that has been executed over nearly 3 decades. In other words, the Commission is guilty, not him. And how Judge Zondo gets himself out of that corner is really going to be very interesting. I think he's in a very, very difficult position. And how's he going to turn that around? There's not a lot of powers that they actually have.
What would happen? Let's say, for instance, this morning, the former president's lawyers come in and say, listen, our man is not going to be, has decided to pull away. Thank you for the invitation. Those 3 days were enough. Thank you. We'll see you. Bye-bye.
Well, I mean, the Commission has various, could subpoena, has various other instruments that it could use. But I think what we need to understand is Zuma has used the Zondo Commission as a platform to launch a comeback strategy. The Monday was really about presenting a whole new interpretation of his own political leadership and the history of the country in a way that sets himself up as the man that can hold back dark, evil forces that we all know nothing about, but only he does. And that has drawn the whole nation into a very dark place and has divided us in very, very significant ways. And already the protest actions are starting to emerge this week. So going forward, the Zondo Commission really was just a platform for launching a new strategy. So I think we need to understand the political context of this. It's not just another courtroom drama.
It seems like the way you're saying it, it's almost like a well-planned diversion tactic, something we've seen Donald Trump do many, many times. We end up talking about something, completely away from, what we should actually be focusing on.
Yeah, it's an extremely effective diversion tactic. And unfortunately, it actually is quite effective because it appeals to millions of people in this country who live in the most unequal society in the world, and they feel like victims. So when they see Msholozi kind of being beaten up, it's very tempting to take his side. So it is a very, very, very distracting strategy, and it's going to deny the Commission what it needs, which is information about specific actions that the former president took at specific time in order to test the hypothesis that there was state capture organized by a particular group of people, which is what my research has been about.
Finally, these inquiries really give the president, power in terms of what he can do at the end of the day. He decides because he gets the report from the Deputy Chief Justice at the end of all this, at the end of over almost 230 million rand spent on the Zondo Commission itself. And then the president will sit with this report and say, then we wait for him to decide what to do.
Yeah, that is correct. But you also and there is quite a lot that can be done, and a lot depends on how Judge Zondo gets out of the corner that he's been put into by the former president. But I think what we need to also be recognized is that there are very few countries in the world where you have a commission like this, where the former president of the country who did commit serious transgressions is brought before the cameras, before the press, before the nation, and asked questions. So the mere fact that that is happening is a sign of strength of our democracy, and a lot will depend on whether the current president reinforces that or is intimidated.
Okay, thank you so much, Mark Swilling. A good point there at the end, especially countries in Africa. This would never happen. So South African democracy working very well. Thank you there, Mark Swilling, talking to us about the Zondo Commission and various commissions that are taking place at the moment.